A decorated Marine, home from a war zone, is about to learn that the most dangerous enemy can wear a familiar uniform. On a quiet street in his own hometown, a local cop, blinded by prejudice, makes the biggest mistake of his career. This isn't just an arrest, it's a reckoning. The feeling of being home had become a distant memory for Sergeant Elias Cole. He'd been back in Havenwood, Carolina for 4 days. The grit of a year-long deployment still settled deep in his bones. His first stop, the only one that mattered, was Mama B's. Her embrace was a fortress against the world. Sitting on her porch as dusk fell, Elias finally felt his guard come down. For the first time in a year, he could simply breathe. The next morning, he put on his dress blues. It wasn't for show, it was his identity. It was how Havenwood knew him. It gave the local kids a symbol of strength, a responsibility he carried with pride. Around noon, he was driving his mom's old Chevy down Cypress Drive toward Henderson's Market. The bell on the door chimed, a sound unchanged by time. He grabbed a cold water and an ice cream sandwich, a small, simple taste of a life he fought for. Mr. Henderson greeted him with a booming laugh. "Well, look what the cat dragged in. Thought you were still overseas making the world safe for democracy. They let me go, Henderson," Elias joked, his voice warm. "Said my mom's cooking was a threat to national security." The old man chuckled. "Your mama's in here every day for that sweet tea. Swears it's the only thing that works on her bad knee." Elias just smiled, the easy moment wrapping around him like the familiar Carolina heat. But as he walked out, the comfort shattered. Across the street, a pale, nervous woman stood by a dumpster, clutching her purse to her chest as if he were a threat from 100 yards away. Her eyes, narrowed and cold, tracked his every move. Her phone was held low, a hidden weapon. Just another day, Elias thought, dismissing her. He never imagined her trembling fingers were dialing 911. He'd learned in combat that the real threat is the one you underestimate. He'd barely shut his car door when the street exploded in a storm of red and blue lights. A police cruiser screeched to a halt behind him, its siren whooping to silence. Another aggressively blocked him from the front. His hands instinctively went to the steering wheel, open and still. His ice cream melted, forgotten. In the rearview mirror, 2 officers got out. The driver, a tall, thick-set man, moved with an arrogant swagger. His hand was already resting on his holstered gun, itching for a reason. Elias's training kicked in. Stay calm, be deliberate, don't give them an excuse. The officer, his name tag reading Drexel, strode to the window and rapped on the glass with his knuckle. He didn't ask for a license. He didn't ask a question. He just gave an order. "Out of the vehicle, now!" Elias looked at the man, his own composure a stark contrast to the officer's aggression. "Is there a problem, officer?" Drexel's lip curled into a sneer. "Yeah, there's a problem. You! I'm not gonna say it again. Get out of the car." His eyes flickered over the marine dress blues with open contempt. "Playing soldier now, are we?" he thought. Elias opened the door slowly, his movements measured, his hands always visible. This was his home, yet he felt the familiar tension of being behind enemy lines. His military ID was clipped to his uniform, impossible to miss. "I'm Sergeant Elias Cole," he said, his voice a calm, solid anchor in the rising storm. "United States Marine Corps." Drexel deliberately squinted at the name on his uniform. "Says here your name is Collie," he mispronounced, dragging the name out like an insult. "And I don't care what costume you're wearing. We got a report of a suspicious man harassing people." "Harassing people?" Elias repeated, the accusation hanging in the air, thick and foul. "Sir, I bought a bottle of water at the market." "That's not what we heard," Drexel snapped, stepping closer, invading his space. Before Elias could react, Drexel grabbed his arm, spun him around and slammed him against the side of the car. The metal frame dug into his ribs. "You need to learn some respect." Cold steel bit into his wrist, cinched painfully tight. Click. Then the other wrist. Click. The cuffs were locked, their metallic chill a stark violation. Across the street, the woman who made the call watched with a look of grim satisfaction. A small crowd was gathering. Kevin, a young mechanic from the local garage, stood frozen for a second before his hands, shaking with rage, lifted his phone. "Hey, what are you doing?" Kevin yelled, his voice cracking. "That's Sergeant Cole. He's a damn war hero." Drexel shot him a venomous glare. "You better back off, kid, or you'll be next." He turned back to Elias, yanking him upright by the cuffs. "Now, as I was saying," he said, his voice low and menacing, "we'll sort out your little story down at the station." Elias stood firm, his gaze unwavering, his mind racing. Escalating this physically was a losing game. The only weapon he had was the truth. "My name is Sergeant Elias Cole," he repeated, his voice louder now, projecting over the street. "My commanding officer is Colonel Hammond at Fort Valor. I suggest you call him." Drexel just laughed, a short, ugly sound. "Oh, I'm sure. Your colonel is probably waiting for your call." But Kevin, refusing to be intimidated, was already dialing. "This isn't right," he muttered, his thumb hitting the call button. He was calling the one man whose authority even a cop like Drexel couldn't ignore. What nobody on that street knew, least of all Officer Drexel, was that 40 miles away at Fort Valor, Colonel Hammond was in his office, and his entire world was about to pivot on a single phone call. He was mid-briefing, his attention focused on a dozen different things, when his personal cell phone buzzed, an unknown number from the Havenwood area code. He answered with a clipped, "Hammond." "Colonel Hammond? My name is Kevin. I work down the street from Sergeant Cole's mother. Sir, the police have him in handcuffs outside Henderson's Market. He's in his uniform. He didn't do a thing, and they're treating him like a criminal." Colonel Hammond sat bolt upright, his posture turning to granite. "Did you say Sergeant Cole?" "Yes, sir. He told them to call you, but they just laughed at him." "Give me the address. Now." The call ended. The colonel stood, his face a mask of cold fury. He turned to the young captain in his office. "Get me the dispatch supervisor at the Havenwood Police Department. Tell them Colonel Hammond is to be patched through to the unit detaining one of my Marines. Not in a minute. Now." Back on Cypress Drive, Elias stood in cuffs. They hadn't read him his rights. They hadn't named a crime. By now, a half-dozen phones were filming, a silent chorus of witnesses. The woman who started it all had vanished, melting back into the shadows she came from. Kevin stood his ground on the sidewalk. "I called his colonel," he shouted, making sure Drexel heard every word. "He's calling your dispatch right now." Drexel sneered. "Kid, you've got a big mouth. You need to learn to shut it." "No," Kevin shot back, his fear replaced by defiance. "You need to take those cuffs off a hero." Just then, the radio on the younger officer's shoulder crackled with static, then a sharp, urgent voice. "Unit 12, stand by. Priority call from Fort Valor. Colonel Hammond is on the line for your senior officer." Both cops froze. Drexel's smug expression dissolved, as if it were splashed with acid. The blood drained from his face. He fumbled for his radio, his hand shaking slightly. "This is Officer Drexel. Patch him through." A moment of static, and then a voice cut through the air. It was perfectly calm, controlled, and carried the weight of absolute authority. "This is Colonel Hammond. To whom am I speaking?" Drexel swallowed, his throat suddenly dry. "Officer Drexel, Havenwood PD." The colonel's voice didn't get louder, but it seemed to drop 20 degrees. "Officer Drexel, you are currently detaining Sergeant Elias Cole, a decorated Marine under my command. He is not a person of interest. He is not under investigation. He is a war hero who returned to this country less than 96 hours ago. Unless you can cite the specific felony you witnessed him commit, you will remove those handcuffs." Immediately, a thick, heavy silence fell over the street. The world seemed to hold its breath. Drexel stammered, his arrogance gone, replaced by a pathetic desperation. "Sir, we had a report of a—" "I don't give a damn about your report." Colonel Hammond's voice was like ice. "I care about facts. Have you ever seen this Marine before in your life?" "No, sir." "Then you will release him. I am en route. My ETA is 15 minutes. If Sergeant Cole is still in handcuffs when I arrive, I will personally ensure that your chief, the mayor, and every news station in this state knows how the Havenwood PD treats returning veterans. Are we clear?" The radio went dead. "Yes, sir," Drexel mumbled to the empty air. The line clicked off. He turned to Elias, but his eyes couldn't meet the sergeant's steady gaze. They darted everywhere else. The younger officer, looking terrified, scrambled for the handcuff key. Click, click. The cuffs fell away. Elias didn't speak. He just rubbed his wrists, the red marks a testament to the officer's aggression. Every phone was still recording. Every eye was on Drexel. No apology came. None was expected. The officer's public humiliation was louder than any words. Less than 10 minutes later, a black government sedan tore down the street and screeched to a halt. Colonel Hammond stepped out, his own dress uniform immaculate, the medals on his chest a silent rebuke, the eagle on his cover flashing in the sun. He didn't slam the door, but his presence hit the street with the force of a shockwave. Drexel and his partner stiffened, trying to regain some semblance of professionalism, but they looked like children caught red-handed. "Sergeant Cole," the colonel said, his voice a sharp crack of respect. "Sir?" Elias replied, a hint of relief in his voice. "Wasn't expecting to see you off base." Colonel Hammond then fixed his gaze on the two officers. His voice was quiet, but it sliced through the air. "Which one of you made the call to put a United States Marine in handcuffs?" Drexel visibly flinched. He swallowed hard. "That would be me, sir. I was acting on a civilian report." "Was he armed?" The colonel shot back. "No, sir." "Was he threatening you?" "No, sir." "Did he resist you in any way?" Drexel just shook his head, his eyes glued to the pavement. "No, sir." "Then explain it to me, officer." The colonel's voice was dangerously low. "Explain to me, to this crowd, and to every person who will see this video, what precise action made you believe a decorated soldier in full uniform, who had just identified himself, was such a threat that he needed to be restrained like a common felon?" The question hung in the air, an indictment. Drexel shuffled his feet, his face beet red. All he could manage was a weak, pathetic whisper. "It was a mistake, sir." "No!" Colonel Hammond snapped, his voice like a whip crack. "A mistake is a typo. This was a choice you made based on prejudice, not procedure. This entire neighborhood just watched you assault a man who has risked his life for this country, all because he stopped to buy a drink." Kevin stepped forward, holding up his phone. "Sir, I've got the whole thing right here. The way he talked to him, the way he shoved him. It's already being sent around." The colonel gave Kevin a single sharp nod of approval. "Good. Make sure everyone sees it." He turned back to Elias and put a firm hand on his shoulder. "Are you all right, Sergeant?" Elias managed a tight smile. "I'll be fine, sir. Just disappointed to be home." "I wish I could say I was surprised," Hammond said, just as an unmarked sedan pulled up. A man in a suit, Deputy Chief Garrett, stepped out, his face pale and sweating. He was already in damage control mode. "Colonel," Garrett said, rushing over, "I've seen the video. It's unacceptable." "Unacceptable doesn't begin to cover it, Chief," Hammond replied, his voice cold. "This is a disgrace, and you need to get ahead of it, because in 30 minutes, that video won't just be local. It'll be national news, and your department will be the poster child for police misconduct." "We're launching an internal review," Garrett said quickly. "Both officers will be placed on administrative leave, effective immediately." Hammond laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. "Leave? You think a paid vacation is justice? Not even close." He took a step toward the deputy chief. "Here's what's going to happen. You are going to fire this officer today. You are going to hold a press conference and you are going to announce it. You will tell the public exactly what he did and exactly how you are going to fix the cancer in your department. That is the only acceptable outcome." Deputy Chief Garrett stared, speechless, as the colonel's words hung in the air like a death sentence. "Yes, sir," he finally choked out, already fumbling for his phone. By that evening, the video was a firestorm. It wasn't just a news story. It was a symbol of injustice that enraged people across the country. The Havenwood Police Department's phone lines were overwhelmed. The pressure was unbearable. But the real justice wasn't on television. It happened in a small, sterile office at the downtown precinct. Drexel sat opposite Deputy Chief Garrett, his face ashen. He'd been called in an hour ago, his swagger gone, replaced by a raw, gnawing fear. "I've reviewed the unedited body cam footage." "Drexel," Garrett said, his voice flat and dead, "I've read 17 formal complaints against you from the last 2 years alone. This time, there's a video, a colonel, and the entire country watching." He slid 3 items across the desk: a resignation form, a pen, and a cardboard box. "You have 2 options," Garrett continued. "You can sign this, walk out of here, and disappear. Or you can refuse, and I will terminate you for cause, ensuring you can never be a police officer again, anywhere. Then I will hand over your entire file to the district attorney to consider criminal charges for assault." Drexel stared at the paper, his hands trembling. His career, his authority, his identity. It was all evaporating in this quiet, humiliating room. He looked up, searching for a lifeline, but found only the cold, hard stare of his superior. Slowly, he picked up the pen. "Your badge and your weapon," Garrett ordered. With a shaking hand, Drexel unclipped the badge from his uniform. It felt weightless, a cheap piece of tin. He placed it on the desk. Then he unholstered his service weapon, cleared the chamber, and laid it beside the badge. The sound of the plastic hitting the wood was deafeningly final. He signed the paper, his signature a pathetic scrawl. His final act as a police officer was one of complete and utter surrender. That night, Elias sat on the porch with Mama B. The air was calm. The street was quiet. "They fired him," she said softly. It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am," Elias replied, looking out at the peaceful dark. "They did." She put her hand on his. It was warm, steady. "You didn't start that fight, baby, but you sure as hell finished it." A car drove by and the driver, a neighbor, gave a small wave. Elias waved back. No cameras, no flashing lights. Just the quiet satisfaction of a debt paid in full. Justice didn't need to shout. Sometimes it was as simple and as powerful as a corrupt man being forced to hand over his badge.